from Captain T. Captain T's Upholstery has been right here in Ocala for nearly 20 years, so they know how to make your ride one of a kind. Whether you want to take that classic ride back to a factory look or put your favorite sports team front and center, Captain T's Upholstery is who to call. 352-369-1810. That's 352-369-1810. Or stop by their location, 5030 South Pine Avenue in Ocala, just past the drive-in. And of course, don't forget to visit them on the web, CaptainTUpholstery.com.
The very best in quality is Captain T's Upholstery.
Next Generation MD is the future of healthcare now. Listen in the first and third Thursday at 10 a.m. to learn how the future in PRP treatments are here in our area. Find out the many ways that Dr. Juan Jordan, MD, Charles Brooks, NP, and case manager Mark Shaw have brought the family medicine practice to a new level. Hear from the very people that benefit from the fine work they have done in this field. Next Generation MD, every first and third Thursday at 10 a.m. here on WOCA 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source.
Langley Health Services, located at 7205 Southeast Merricamp Road in Ocala, is a federally qualified health center offering family practice, pediatrics, podiatry, dental, behavioral health, and radiology services. Most insurance accepted, sliding scale for those who qualify, and same-day appointments available until 4 p.m. with board-certified family practice and internal medicine physicians on staff. Langley Health Services, call today 352-680-7000.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
Diamonds in the sunset, now your time has come.
All right, 22 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. How good are you at leadership? Are you a good leader, Robin? Are you a good leader?
I don't know. Sometimes I think I am.
Depends on who's following you, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And if you are a part of a bigger picture, let's say, you want your team to be able to work together with other teams. It makes sense, right? It's how we are great as a country. Chris Fussell is on the phone. Chris has written this book called One Mission: How Leaders Build a Team of Teams, and I love the philosophy. He was commissioned as a naval officer in 1997, spent 15 years on United States Navy SEAL teams around the world. He served as an aide-de-camp to Lieutenant General Stanley McChrystal. He's a partner at the McChrystal Group Leadership Institute, and he's on the phone. What an honor to have Chris Fussell. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great, and thanks for having me on this morning.
Where are you calling from?
I am in New York City today.
You have an authority to your voice already. I hear it in your voice. Are you a natural born leader?
That's a great question. I don't know if there are natural born leaders. I think people have certain skill sets that give them a propensity to be good leaders, comfort in front of others, ability to communicate. But I always say that leadership is not an inherent skill. It's not something that you can necessarily teach, but it's something that people need to study constantly throughout their lives if this is what they want to do in the world. I think
you're right. But I do think there's a one contrary kind of an observation on my part, that I've known men who are and women who are now in leadership roles, and I can remember them when they were kids, and there's very few people who fit that category. People I know as adults who I also knew as kids, and they were leaders back then. But I also know people who were not. They were kind of like the wallflower. They weren't really leaders at all, and they are also leaders. So I've seen both. I've seen the ones who kind of, I guess, acquired it or figured it out, and others who just seem to always be that way.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, and that's why I'd say that there's no specific road would be my point. And I've seen people that were great leaders as kids who didn't become great leaders as adults. So you see all sorts of approaches to this.
So when you are talking about many teams becoming one team, and you're talking about the United States when you talk about that, right? It is. I guess it is necessary that we have one team leader in the country sense. It would be the president, or at least the government. But how do you do that with corporations and businesses, et cetera? How do you do that?
Well, there's several components to this and what we went through inside the special operations community that you can see translate over into industry as well, and that's a lot of the work that we do now inside the McChrystal Group. One step is it's inherent on senior leaders to step back and say, accept the fact that the world is changing. So the world is moving at a much faster pace. Problems and individuals are interconnected in the information age in a way that simply didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. We discovered this early in the special operations community because we started fighting what we thought would be a traditional sort of insurgency, and then we came to realize that Al-Qaeda was just this global network of people that were connected around an idea. So you had to run the organization differently, and the conversation around that had to start with our senior leadership. So that's step one, senior leaders stepping back and saying, yeah, things are working differently now. What's our common mission that people are going to connect into? So all these disparate high-performance teams that we built between marketing, sales, R&D, regions, products, etc. What common single mission focus can we give all of them that creates a unified whole? Because it no longer matters what your batting average is if the team is losing, right? So you have to look at the scoreboard, not your own individual statistics. And that's hard for high-performance individuals to realize. But that's how you get the conversation started to create this interlocking teams methodology.
You do have a leadership quality in the way you speak. I can hear it. You can hear it, right, Robin?
I can.
Do you know what I've often wondered? Like, okay, I've got two teams I want to tell you about how they work together. The two teams are law enforcement and firefighters. When there's an accident and both teams show up on the scene, usually the law enforcement lets the firefighters perform any emergency medical tasks that need to be performed. But if police show up first, they also will do the emergency medical task. And it's interesting how they kind of have it all worked out, that because you don't want to be king of the hill. You don't want to be doing that. You can't waste time. But it's interesting how they've figured that out.
Well, that's a really interesting example. I've never heard anyone bring that up, but it's a great parallel to what we saw in the special operations community, which is, people would say, well, the intelligence agencies and the military and the other civilian agencies, they don't share information effectively. But if you go down to an outstation on the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan, where I spent some of my early years in the special operations community, there would be individuals from all those different components. And to your point, that was a very small, important situation. We were all thrown into this common environment, and we operated as a very effective cross-functional team. Similar to police and firefighters, in an emergency situation, they'll figure it out because you've got great people that understand the problem's very real right in their face. But when you scale that up to the big government level, or in your example, to the city level, do the senior leaders of fire and police and city management and all these other components, do they integrate the same way that the teams on the ground would? In most cases, they don't, because they live in different bureaucracies. So if you're going to affect the overall strategy of the city, what if you could scale? What if you could go down to the ground and say, look how well our police and firefighters work together when they're in an emergency situation? What if our bureaucrats across the entire spectrum operated in that same fashion?
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's where McChrystal got us to inside the global task force that he was running.
Well, I don't know how many of you out there are interested in learning about leadership, but here's my hunch, is that people who are interested in being more effective leaders will always gravitate toward this kind of a book, and you have written a wonderful one. Chris, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. Is it Fussell? Am I saying it right?
There's few ways to pronounce it. I pronounce it Fussell, but half my family goes by Fussell, so I answer either one.
Well, I'll say it the way you say it. Chris Fussell, I'm impressed already. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to us about this. This is more important than people realize. Good leadership is so important. And you just have to, the what is it called, the alpha male syndrome? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to let somebody be an alpha male, even if you normally are the one. I think that's part of that too, and understanding when to do that. Chris, thank you for being on the air with us. Thank you for your service. For the listeners, the book is called One Mission. Call me if you want the copy that was sent to me. One more thing before we say goodbye, Chris. How do we get the book?
You can go to our website, the McChrystal Group, or it's available on all the big distributors online.
Okay, and McChrystal is spelled McChrystal. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
McChrystal. Okay, thank you. Chris, thank you for being on the air with us.
Thanks to you both. Have a great day.
We'll be right back.
Have you heard of Hyperdirectory? When looking for local businesses, go to hyper.directory. No need for .w, no need for .com, just hyper.